Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 8 o'clock Central Standard Time, 7 o'clock Mountain Time, 6 o'clock Pacific Time. I am here. I am your host, Gary Graham. Today I'm here to talk about something special. Usually you will see me on Friday afternoons, 3 to 5, with my younger brothers, snack time with the Grams. But today I am here to talk about something that has hit my soul. We're going to talk about Brian Flores, Boss Move or Soft Move. And we're going to go ahead and chat about some of the events that has happened. And hopefully this will be not only entertaining, but food for thought. I have a couple of special guests here that will want to chime in. And just want to let you know, those who are coming on, I would appreciate it. So let's just jump right into it. Um, I want to thank everybody for supporting supporting me and just supporting me during the grief counseling. The promo, we are starting at 8 o'clock on Monday. So that will start. You also going to see the Girl Power Group, Mental Health Manna, Boys to Men. All of those will come in. Our signature broadcast is Snacks with the Grams. Every Monday, you will see my dear brother Patrick, who is with the Allegheny East Conference Youth and Children's Department. He does prayer connections for your children. That's on Monday afternoons. You send in your prayer requests for your kids. And every other month, you will see Paul Graham with Bible Boot Camp, 5 o'clock in the morning. He is doing January, March, May, July, September, and that's going off real good. This month, February, he's doing lunchtime manna. I think I got everything in there. Um, that's really about it. And once in a while, Patrick would jump on and Paul would jump on. But for those who know me very well, from my days of Greater New York Academy, Andrews University, I was a big sports fan. So yesterday afternoon, February 1st, I probably came across news that I was very excited about. Um, you know, in my lifetime, I never thought that we'll see a black president, and we did with Barack Obama. Also, in my lifetime, we're coming upon a Supreme Court justice that will be a black female. Never thought I would see that in my life time. Also, seen a lot of things in my lifetime, but those two things I'm very proud of. Um, but yesterday, Black History Month started. Um, a football coach by the name of Brian Flores sued the National Football League for their racist hiring practice. When I heard this, I flipped out. Um, and I, as a mental health therapist and a person in public health, I thought that it was really personal to me as a black male, um, who I felt that was slighted or looked over in different positions. Um, Brian Flores had brought this out, um, by putting this in the lawsuit. So basically, the lawsuit alleges that the NFL's hiring practices for black coaches and black executives is non-existent. The NFL currently has one African American coach. He is for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Mike Tomlin. For those who don't know who Mike Tomlin is, I don't have pictures or whatever, but if you've seen Juice and you've seen Omar Epps, it looks just like him. That's for people who don't understand who it is. If you look it up, and it looks just like him. And so with that, um, you see that he is still there, 15 winning seasons, but Brian Flores was the head coach for the Miami Dolphins over the last 3 years. And I have some friends down in Miami. I'll call them out: Sharon Henley, um, Kim Flournoy, and Archie Menace, who I think that is probably the biggest Miami Dolphin fan ever. And what Brian Flores did with the Miami Dolphins, he showed that he can coach. He brought them; they won 8 in a row. Only man to beat Bill Belichick, arch rival. He's the coach of the New England Patriots, and he was able to beat him twice. So, with that being said, it was a surprise that was um, he was fired, and upon that firing, he went ahead and he went to start interviewing in the cycles. And what really kicked this whole thing off is that he went to an interview with the New York Giants, and the New York Giants had already hired the person because of what they call the Rooney Rule. You're supposed to interview a minority or an African American prospective coach before you hire them. And so he's claiming that it was all a sham, and he has the receipts. He got a text message, and we all have done it. We all text somebody that we were not supposed to text, and he got a text from one of the most famous coaches, Bill Belichick. And when he got the text, Bill Belichick congratulated him that he got the job with the Giants, and he thought he was texting the new Giant head coach or the person who was naming Brian Brable, but he texted Brian Flores instead. And so that was the beginning of what was happening. A second thing is that he claimed that the owner for the Miami Dolphins, Stephen Ross, University of Michigan alum, uh, told him that he needs to lose on purpose and he'll give him $100,000. When he did not do that, they labeled him as a troublemaker, hard to work with. And that was a second trigger for me. One, the first trigger is I've gone to job interviews where I felt that I couldn't get the job, but somebody had named them and I was just going through the motions. And that happened with Brian Flores. The second one is uh, that he was told to lose, and when you still stand on integrity, he would say that you're difficult to work with. And so I say a lot of black males, they don't go around having sex like people think they do, and they don't go around stealing money. So then they say that they're difficult to work with. And so um, the third thing, he has gone to interviews where they showed up late and they were disheveled. If you read the report and if you read the lawsuits, um, it is very detailed, and we're going to get into it. So I have I don't want to call him my college buddy, but my wonderful friend. 30 years ago, we had our own sports show. It ran for 3 months. And I was talking to Brian Watts today. He said he remembered they used to roll it out in the cafeteria. And for 3 months, we were a celebrity in Huntsville. Literally, we would walk down the street and people would recognize us. And I thank him for allowing that. And hopefully, the other two will pop in. But I am going to bring in my good friend, somebody who I talk to 3 times a week, and who is very well versed in journalism. I'm going to let him tell you about his podcast because I don't want to mess it up. But he graced us with his time this late 9 o'clock hour. The Greg Ford, and hopefully we can do this right because usually the twins do this. Hey, Greg, how you doing?
What's up, man?
Thank you for coming
I
on.
don't think anybody's ever called me the Greg Ford before.
The right, what you like the Ohio State?
Yes.
So you put that the in front of it, and it's legit. Just quickly tell everybody your podcast and how we could listen to it. I know you're a phenomenal writer, and not only you're a phenomenal mind on sports, but on politics. And we're glad just to have you on this impromptu talk
Oh, appreciate
about Brian
that.
Flores.
Yeah, cool. I mean, you and I do this all the time on the cell phone.
Mhm.
But I started a podcast a little over a year ago called the Platform Talk Podcast. Wherever you listen to your podcasts or streaming services, do a search and you'll be able to find it. Um, I actually also have a website called theplatform.fyi,
Mhm.
and you can find the podcast through that website. But we're really here to talk about what's going on with what you're talking about tonight. So I was listening to your introduction about Flores, and I've seen more coverage today. And to be honest with you, G, I've gotten kind of emotional with so many things I've been hearing
Yes.
people say. You know,
Yes.
and the way they're talking about how courageous it is. And it's funny because when I did my Facebook post, um, one of my Facebook friends, a guy I used to work with when I worked at CNN
Mhm.
20 years ago, um, had said to me, you know, when are we as black people going to learn, you know, to stop supporting the NFL? And I told him, I said, well, one of the things I think that we need to have is some level of solidarity.
Right.
Um, and the next thing I know, and this was before Brian Flores dropped the news. This was just
Mhm.
about the hiring and whatnot. And
Yes.
then lo and behold, Brian Flores drops this lawsuit on the first day of Black History Month,
Right. Right.
right? And I'm gonna tell you, ever since that time, and I'm delighted to see how much traction this story has gotten. And as I jokingly said to you, um, I'm throw a little bit of haterade out there, but I'm glad this has taken some of the shine away from Tom Brady's retirement.
Greg, you said it. I actually have it in our crib notes, which I sent to you, and I know that came from the timing, Black History Month, and Tom Brady was already had decided to retire because Adam Schefter reported it from ESPN, and everybody tried to say it was not. So he tried to time it the same day because the other part of the timing is this is the run up to the Super Bowl week.
Right,
So you cannot escape this. And Brian Flores has taken the stage. He was on CBS this morning, he was on CNN this morning, and he was on ESPN this morning. So he has had the timing and he has had the platform, and rightfully so.
right.
So, what else stood out with you in the lawsuit? I'll mirror what I said. I already said. I think you told me this, but I'll start with this and I'll let you follow with this. The fact that the Giants already hired Brian Dable, and he still had to go in there and interview like he did not know.
Right.
And he said he used the word that he was humiliated.
Yes.
So I let you take that and tell me what else stood out with you in the lawsuit.
Yeah, man. Of course, there was that. Um, what's very interesting is this came out either late last night or early this morning when they were talking about the fact that they had pressured him. Stephen Ross, the owner of the Dolphins, had pressured him to meet with a QB,
Prominent
prominent QB,
QB.
right?
Right.
Right,
Yep.
and he initially was like, no, that's tampering. So he got invited out onto the yacht, walks out to the yacht, and the QB is on the yacht.
Right.
Now we don't know for sure who it is, but more than likely it was the guy who retired recently,
Exactly.
and he left immediately.
Right.
And to talk about one of the things that made me emotional is Jeff Saturday, who is on ESPN.
Right.
He said something, and man, like I said, I have been really moved by what a lot of white commentators have said. And
Oh
Jeff
yeah, they
Saturday
know. They
said,
know. They
"You
know.
you have a guy here who is now fallen on his own sword on behalf of other black coaches." He said, "Isn't this the kind of guy you want leading your locker room,
Exactly.
bruh?"
Wow. Wow. See that I didn't even, so wow, Jeff Sack.
Jeff
Wow.
Saturday said that. That's exactly right. That's
I
exactly
mean, I'm also connected with Brian Flores because you're from New York and I'm from New York. His parents are immigrants. He's from Honduras. His family's from
I didn't
Honduras.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It
Big
makes
shout
sense.
out to Camilla, to Timekeeper. Wendell, I see you. Tamika Lee, I saw you. I see you. Thank you for coming on. And if anybody's in the chat, just say hello to Greg and myself. Yeah. So somebody a little younger than us, immigrants, come up through the ranks, and he started at 23 at the bottom,
That's right. I
and
just
by the
heard
time
today that he started
Mhm.
off as an assistant scout. So
as
this cat has paid his dues, G.
dudes, yep. And so in the NFL, and for those who don't understand this, and Greg and I can talk to this, especially Greg, the NFL is like Black Seventh Day Adventism. You know everybody, and everybody knows everybody. So they know, or you hear you hear that what he did down in Miami, everybody has bought in to what he has done. What he did in Miami is phenomenal.
Yes.
Phenomenal. I
Okay.
like what Jeff Saturday said.
Yes.
Um, I'll share with you. I have four people that people should look up, and then you could piggyback on this as to if you the one that taught me. Go to YouTube and put in. I'm gonna say Clinton Yates, Brian Flores. Clinton Yates had an excellent uh, take on it. Michael Wilbon, one of our favorites, had a very poignant take on it. Shannon Sharp, you need to hear what Shannon Sharp said when Paul Hackett, no, not Paul Hackett, Nathaniel Hackett got hired for Denver, and he just went all the way down. And Nick Wright from FS1.
Right.
If you see those people, I'm gonna type it in there and in the chat. Those people, you need to hear what they said. Who else besides Jeff Saturday has made an impact on you on what you heard today?
If folks know who Chris Broussard is,
Yes.
he used to be on ESPN for a long time. He's on FS1. As a matter of fact, he was on Nick Wright's show. And one of the things he said is that, and this was something that was beautiful, man. I wish I had the clip handy.
Hmm.
What I'll do is while you're talking next, I'll pull up the clip and I'll put it in the comments so people can look at it.
Hmm.
But he said that this shouldn't have to fall on just Brian Flores. And this is
Right.
something, again, you and I have talked about. I've talked about this with other people. Is that he said, look, every NFL player, every coach, every assistant coach, if they come together and say, you know what, we've had enough of this, because you can't make billionaires hire whoever you want them to hire, which is to a certain extent is understandable. But
Hmm.
by virtue of the fact that they say, look, we are not playing, we're not showing up to training camp until you rectify the situation. They can't fire everybody. They need these people.
Right.
70% of the NFL is
It's
black
bad.
players.
Right.
You know? But again, see what this comes down to, because Gary, what we're talking about, this issue transcends football,
Right.
right? This is an
Mhm.
issue of is there enough black solidarity to make sure that we don't get left behind?
Yep. You're right.
We've allowed it to happen to Colin Kaepernick, and now
Right.
this brother's about here doing something which is even he's challenging these guys head on, and he's
Right.
calling out receipts. And so Chris Broussard said, "Listen, if these guys come together, former coaches, current players, and if they
Mhm.
come together, man, they can make a change. You can force these guys because people are not going to do right unless you force them to do right. Sometimes."
Do you remember a couple of years in the bubble uh, when uh, when Floyd got killed, and then you heard that the NBA players were not hitting the court,
That's right.
couldn't do
Yes,
nothing, and
that's
I
right.
would just and you and I are on two sides of this, and I have no problem. You're my friend, and we could disagree with it. I'll mention names. Brandon stopped watching the NFL because
Right.
of the whole concussion thing, and he doesn't watch the NFL at all. He thinks that they're dirty, and he put me onto that. But you are on the side that if people of color stop watching the NFL, they will, they will pay attention. And I am on the side of if the players don't show, like let's say game two, They just don't go through the motion and what have you. They don't show it put an impact because a local person here in New York said that you cannot embarrass the billionaires of the NFL. Domestic violence, CTE, and you know, it is emotional. Um, this some people call him the Rosa Parks of the NFL. I think that's a little too much. I'll downgrade it. I shouldn't say downgrade it to Kurt Flood, who ushered in um, free agency not only for baseball but for everybody.
Sorry to cut
So
you off, Gary, real quick. Somebody on ESPN, because you're the first person I heard say that when you and I were first talking about this. One of the sportscasters on ESPN this afternoon mentioned Kurt Flood in the same
yeah,
context you just did.
yeah. What Kurt Flood did, he sacrificed his career, and now Hugh Jackson has come out and said that the Browns has offered him money to tank. So what are you to do? This is a man of integrity, and you said like just like Jack said on Saturday, this is somebody you want in your team. Let me ask you, and this is a tricky question. Do you think he's going to get a job in the NFL?
Uh, G, I don't know,
Hmm.
because the thing is, I think what it comes down to is from the owner's point of view, what will do them the least amount of harm,
Hmm.
balanced with how do they save face, right?
Hmm.
Because at the end of the day, that's why Colin Kaepernick was not going to get a job. I was talking
Hmm.
about this with my mother. Mother called me and said, "Have you heard about this coach?" I said, I've been talking about that for the last 24 hours."
Right.
And I said to her, I said, "What's interesting is that with Colin Kaepernick, you've got NFL players who involved in domestic abuse, attempted murder, all kinds of egregious, heinous stuff, and they'll get rehired, right? Or pulled back on a team.
Hmm.
Colin Kaepernick, who stood up for a social issue, can't get a job. Here's a cat who went to an NFC championship game and then went to a Super Bowl in back-to-back years. So
Yeah.
this argument that he's not good enough to play is a bunch of baloney.
Right.
The issue is, like you just said, you can't. These guys are not going to allow you to embarrass them,
Hmm.
and for you to be somebody who has called attention to a social issue, they won't
Hmm.
give you a job, but they'll bring other guys back who have done all kinds of shenanigans. Because at the end of the day, they understand the way that the psyche works of most people is that we don't want to highlight individuals that are going to encourage
Hmm.
or dissenting behavior. You got a
Right.
guy who's upstanding that are causing people. He's got a platform that's going to cause people to do better. Yeah, we can't have that precedent set. This is the same thing that used to happen when you would during slavery, right? You take the
Hmm.
biggest, strongest black male and you castrate him or you break him in front of everybody else
Hmm.
to send a message. Colin Kaepernick was made an example of.
Right.
Fortunately for Brian Flores, that tactic has already been done. And I'm going to tell you, I did not expect the amount of traction that this has gotten in the media and the amount of commentators and former football players that are on board, white and black. So these
Hmm.
owners better tread carefully about how they move forward from here.
So I'm going to make a bold prediction um, that Brian Flores is going to be hired by the Saints. Um, he actually told the Saints that the lawsuit was coming out, and today Loomis verified that he did say that. So if I was an NFL owner and Sean Payton has just left my stable, and Drew Brees has left my stable, and I wanted a great coach to rebuild at a decent time, I would pick him, and it would be kind of like a return serve. I put this in tennis, a return serve of saying, "See, we have no problem. We hiring our person, and give him a legitimate chance because uh, I don't think the NFL has the guts to do another Colin Kaepernick. This guy has been called out, and the thing about it is that it's one thing when a player have receipts, like you've been to the championship or what have you, and that's one thing. And they don't want to be seen in the live. When you look in the end zone, you see inspire change, end racism, equality.
Right.
So there's about 4 or 5 coaches that got hired that don't deserve as much as um, Brian does.
Right.
So I think he's going to get a shot
Right.
at this, so they can kind of balance of what's going on. This is
Right.
just my long shot. So
No, no. Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised either way. I wouldn't be surprised if he never
mm,
coaches again in any
mhm,
capacity in the NFL, and I wouldn't be surprised if he gets hired, because at the end of the day, these guys are concerned with public relations. And I want to
mm,
touch on something you said earlier, because a lot of people, this goes back to you and I talked about this earlier about framing, right?
right. I remember we
If
talked about that. Yeah.
Right. So if you have oatmeal for breakfast, I can frame this as, Gary Graham eats a healthy breakfast of oatmeal every day, right? Or I could say Gary Graham eats horse food because
Mm,
horses eat oats.
mm,
You know what I'm saying? So one
right.
way is framed in a negative light, the other way
Mhm,
is framed in a positive light. So when it comes to this issue of Flores, how are they going to frame this? They can frame it as, well, you know what, we took this to heart and realized we got to do better, and they get to save face and do whatever they
mm,
need to do. Or they can try to take a hard line, which I don't think is going to be a very good idea, because you've got so many, like I said, so many former players. I haven't heard a single criticism of Brian Flores about his
yep.
approach or anything. He has everybody's sympathy in this regard. So,
Yep.
like I said, they better tread carefully. Real quick, Gary, the link, I put it in a private thing to you. I can't put it in the comments. So if you want to put it in so everybody can see it,
Okay.
for what Chris Broussard said, and it's at the
Okay.
9 minute and 14 second mark.
Okay. Or then you could also send it to me and I could post it after.
Perfect.
Yeah. I'm just such a novice at this,
Okay.
man. I think I went through that. We got the receipts, the timing. Let's talk about qualified black coaches that has not don't have a job yet. And the big one now is Eric Bieniemy,
Right.
right? And so Eric Bieniemy didn't get a job, and for those Kansas City Chiefs fans, he is the offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs. 4 AFC championships in a row, and he hasn't got a job. Um, Tamika talked about Brian Leftwich, and the story with that is some coaches come and he wanted a GM, and they was like, "No, we don't want you to have your own GM, because a coach and a GM has to be hand in hand,
That's right.
together." So in college, I was your center. Those are supposed to be cerebral positions of what happens. You have Brian Leftwich, you have Todd Bowles, you have Bieniemy, you have Leslie Frazier. Tell me which coach. All of them are qualified, much like the Supreme Court of African American ladies who are more qualified than Amy Coney Barrett. That's for another show. But which coach stands out to you the most, and which one bothers you the most that they do not have a job?
I'm still salty about Jim Caldwell, right?
Okay.
Jim
Theodore
Caldwell
said that. Yeah.
coached Jeff Saturday,
Mm,
right? Jim Caldwell is a coach that all he did was win in Detroit, right? He got to the playoffs twice, and in 3 out of the 4 seasons he coached there, he had a winning record. Why is he
yeah.
not coaching in the NFL again? Leslie
Right.
Frazier, who's the defensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills, he's been a DC for, man, almost 30 years,
Right.
right? So again, these are guys, again, if you're a black coach, you get one shot. More often than not, they put you in a losing situation where the team is in shambles. Once it starts to creep out into a level of respectability, then they snatch it away from you and hand it to a white coach. That
Mm.
happened to Lovey
Tampa Bay.
Smith in Tampa Bay,
Hmm.
right? The record was steadily improving. They get to draft Jameis Winston, and then guess what? He gets fired. This
Yep.
guy took his team to a Super Bowl.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying?
Same thing with Tony
Why is
Dunn.
he
Same.
coaching? Huh?
Same thing with Tony Dungy
Same thing with
when he was
Tony
at
Dungy.
Dungy, and then they got Chucky
That's
to
right.
come over, and Chucky had the Raiders playbook. So they, they were. If you look at the Super Bowl tapes, they knew every play that they were running, and was able to. They get, he had a layup,
That's
and
exactly right.
I hate to say this, but he got what was coming. What comes around goes around, because
Right.
he clearly profited
Yeah.
off of that.
What's very interesting, Gary, is speaking to John Gruden. I think what's also very important is remember when Gruden filed his lawsuit, he filed a lawsuit saying that he was singled out. And because remember, there were hundreds of thousands of emails that the NFL redacted and released this much just relating to Gruden. Now, the thing is, the NFL throws Gruden under the bus when the whole investigation started about the Washington football team.
That's right.
How'd this circle back to John Gruden, and why is it only Gruden? I think that all of those emails that got redacted, all this stuff would fall under evidence to benefit Brian Flores. You don't think these owners and the stuff that Chucky said and in relation, first of all, how is it that John Gruden has enough of a relationship with the general manager of the Washington football team to be talking about the head of the players union? He
Yeah,
doesn't work for the Redskins.
but Greg,
Sorry, the football team. And
Greg,
so, okay,
they
well, that's
all.
the point. But I think, G, what's happening here, all of this stuff is one big mess. And Tagliabue, Goodell, and
Ooh, we're
all
back
these,
there.
yeah, we're back there.
We're back
All
there.
these
Yeah.
cats, they do not want the owners and the conversations that happen between these people to come out to the open. That's why those emails are redacted. Because guess what? The original thing that this started under, which was the investigation into the Washington football team, is anybody talking about that now?
Oh, you mean the
Right?
Commodore? You mean the Commodores?
The Commanders,
The
right?
Commanders, right?
Now, all of a
Right.
sudden, look over here, John Gruden. Look over here, John Gruden. And the main reason you're supposed to be talking about that investigation, no one's talking about that anymore. And so I have no doubt that all that stuff that's been redacted affects the hiring practices of black coaches and and assistant coaches and all kinds of stuff like that.
That's why I think that he's going to get a job.
It could be. It could
Yeah,
be.
because if I wanted to slow this down and stop this from going to recovery, I would try to settle this out of court the same way they did with the CTE, and they said that black brains were different than white brains, and that the black uh, players with CTE or brain malfunctions did not get as much attention as white players. Some white players were getting looked over 3 or 4 times, black players one time, and the NFL has lawyers upon lawyers upon lawyers. And so what Brian Flores has done has brought every social issue, every economic issue. Look, Josh McCown has got a second interview, and he's a high school coach, and regular coaches are offended from that. That's the most offensive thing that they have done.
Right.
And they kept it moving. So you know it's a joke. I
Do
don't
you
know if
think,
I
you know who Dominique Foxworth is?
sure do. ESPN.
You asked earlier about, I just thought about things that have been said that were also very moving. He said that from the time he was 12 years old, he said every decision he made was about him making it to the NFL. And once he got to the NFL, every decision he made was about making sure he was good enough to get a second contract so that he
That's
could take care of his family
that's
and the
people.
people that are important to him. And he says, so when you hear about an owner wasting possibly your blood, sweat, and tears for a draft pick. I mean, you could see that it took everything in him to control himself to not be profane on national television. And you could see the same disgust with Jeff Saturday and Marcus Spears and a lot of these players. And that is the thing that's going to really, really hurt these owners. They better be careful about how they proceed from here on out.
It's funny. I'm going to say this with a little tongue in cheek. You know, we're not superior athletes, but we've been around them. When you're in a locker room, nobody sees white or black to a certain extent. That's your brother, and you know who are good coaches, whether that person is a wide receiver coach or a quarterbacks coach or DC or OC. When I was playing basketball, a lot of my basketball skills came from a person who used to take me onto the sideline and work with my free throw shooting and my rebounding, just going over and over and over again. So a lot of people knows what's going on, and I'm gonna just tell everybody this is not over. This is here to stay, and the NFL, uh, they're very tricky. They have a big PR machine because everybody denied it, but up to now, the Giants had not denied that that happened, but they said that he was a finalist. One more thing, they use this term. They say things like, you know, you were the leading candidate, but Greg Ford was the leading candidate, but then Gary Graham came and blew them away. They always say the same language. They
Right.
use the same PR person. Nobody got blown away. You found somebody that you can work with, and I get it, but it's not good enough.
Right. Can I address something in the comments?
Absolutely.
Somebody, Theodore Thorpe, said the NFL players don't have the power or the leverage like in the NBA. The collective bargaining agreement favors the owners heavily.
Mm.
I agree with half of that statement. The collective
Right.
bargaining agreement does favor the owners heavily.
Mm.
The players don't exercise the leverage. They've got the leverage,
Right.
but it takes across the board solidarity, right?
Mm.
So I'm gonna tell you because I think Theodore makes another comment talking about the bottom line. The bottom line is money,
Right.
and they're not going to get the money if people feel like they're getting an inferior product when they come out there.
Right.
And so
Right.
if all of the major stars, because if the major stars fall in line with this thing, then every player who's got a lower level of status and skill level, they'll feel safer to go on board with this. Gary, I can almost guarantee you there has to be the vast majority of black players and white players think that this is some BS that's happening to Brian Flores,
Because they
right?
hear, they know,
They know what's
they
going
know,
on, and
they know.
so I'm gonna tell you, Matt. You know what, Gary? All it would take, I believe it would be a domino effect. All it would take would to be for a few prominent black
Mm.
players to say, you know what? With these remaining jobs, there are 4 jobs left because it seems as if Harbaugh is going to be the 5th coach hired,
He's
right?
going to the he's going to go to the Vikings,
Going to the Vikings. That leaves the Texans, the Saints,
Jaguars.
the Jaguars, and who else? One other team. I can't think of
Hmm.
who else it is.
Right.
But the bottom line is that if the players say, look, if this, or even if they don't hire something this cycle, if the beginning of next season every player does something where there's a band, a wristband, or before the game, they take a knee, one live play out of the game.
Mm.
For Brian Flores and all the black coaches, bruh, you can't fight that wave.
Hmm.
You can't do that.
Hmm.
But I said this 25 years ago when I first started reading a lot of black history. And what I realized is that I said this to myself, is that for black people to move forward and get the kind of respect that we deserve, we are going to collectively, right, or individually and collectively take one step back so that we can get 2 steps forward. And the
Hmm.
issue is going to be, are we all willing to take that one step back? And some of us are
Hmm.
not. There's too many of us that are not willing to do what Brian Flores is doing.
Well, there would have been people that would have taken that 100,000.
Absolutely.
And I think that has happened
Right.
before. And I'll this is the last part. If he alleged to if the NFL find out, he's going to have to sell the team, and not only that, he has to sell the team. Now, the NFL is in bed with gambling. So can you imagine? You need a fair and equal playing field to gamble. Nobody's going to put money on your game if you feel that Greg Ford is giving Gary 100,000 to blow the game.
That's right.
And so the NFL has a big. That's why I'm saying this is a big problem.
You know something else, Gary?
There's people right now working on this right as we speak.
You know what's also interesting? I don't know why this didn't occur to me earlier. That quarterback.
Mhm.
Here's what's interesting. The quarterback showed up, Gary.
That's right.
He showed up into what is an obvious tampering situation. And
That's
if
why
that
Tom. That's why
quarterback
Tom.
is who we think that quarterback
That's
is,
why he retired.
that takes a whole lot of shine off of him and his
Mhm.
legacy, doesn't it?
Yep.
Isn't that interesting?
That you notice that so Brian Flores. Oh, this is good. Brian Flores probably has leverage because that's the only name he didn't name. Think about it. He named everybody: Bill Belichick, John Elway, Stephen Ross. Okay. For those who don't know, those are big names. The only person. So, what other big quarterback? It wasn't Drew Brees. It was only one person,
One guy.
one guy, Tom Brady. And it's ironic that he retired. So there's going to be negotiation, and I'll end with this. I know whatever. Uh, on CBS News, it was asked, or CNN, if you were to be hired by the Saints or the Texans, would you drop the lawsuit? My man said no.
Good for him.
Right.
Good for him.
Mm.
Good
Yep.
for him.
Yep. Chris is right. This barely touches the surface.
Absolutely. She's
Yeah.
absolutely right.
You're Greg. I'm glad we talked. You are right because it makes sense. Because if this prominent quarterback who showed up at the marina or there, his name wasn't named,
That's
that
right.
means,
You think he didn't know what he was showing up for?
yep, of
Because
course.
remember, look at how good that team was.
Yep.
That team, even not just this past season, the year before, when they finished 10 and
He did,
6,
he didn't want
they were
to.
scaring people, man.
He did
They
not
were a
want.
quarterback away from really doing something.
He did not want
And
to.
and we know that that quarterback, he who shall not be named, to borrow the whole Harry Potter thing, right? He wanted to play there, and the
Mm-hmm.
speculation was his wife wanted him to play there too,
Hmm. Wow.
and he
Just
ended up
connected
at the
dots.
same state, didn't he?
Sure did.
Look at that. But
Well,
we can't touch the golden child though.
yeah, that would be a disaster. That would be a disaster. It's funny that nobody asked him today who was the prominent player. Maybe they were told not to ask that prior
Right?
to the
Yeah,
interview.
I
The
wouldn't.
lawyers were there. Yeah. Wow.
I would be pleasantly shocked if this is still a story a month from now. But,
Well.
hey, Theodore, I don't know, bro. It could be
Mhm.
anything, man. Because listen, bro, there's nothing more important to powerful people than maintaining the narrative, no matter what
Mhm.
the cost.
Well, I ran out. We did all of our things. Go back. We ran it out. We usually talk. We like to thank everybody for showing up. It has been wonderful. Um, I'm glad that you came through. I really appreciate it, Greg.
Thanks for
Um,
inviting me, man.
yeah, Theodore, Krissa, uh, everybody who showed up. Timekeeper, I see you. Tamika, I see you. Wendell Timothy was my roommate at Andrews. I see you. Thank you for coming on. And with that, I say goodbye. And I'll see you on Friday on Snacks. And if you like what you heard, you can reach out to me. And when we talk about sports and politics, this is my guy right here. We talk about this. Real last quick, I'm going to say some, uh, I'll let you say some closing words, Greg, and then I'll close out.
Yeah, man. Gary and I have talked about doing a little thing together for a while. So if you all like it, please let us know what you think. Like I said, we talk about sports and politics all the time. We talk about whatever. If you got some ideas about what we should be talking about, how often we should talk, let him know. And he'll get back with me.
Good.
Oh, and if you get a chance, please check out my podcast, The Platform Talk. All right. And
Mhm.
then the website is theplatform.fyi.
Yeah, and when you see us, click, share, and comment. Last thing I want to know, one of the statistics that came out, I think Clinton Yates brought it up, or Nick Wright. That's why I told you to look them up. 14%. of the coaching in NFL is through nepotism. Nathaniel Hackel's father is Paul Hackett. Uh,
Who was Joe Montana's quarterback coach and offensive coordinator when he went to play for Kansas City.
and he was with the Cowboys.
That's right.
And Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan, is from the Shanahan clan. They're all family. They're all family. So just like what's happening in basketball with Bickerstaff and John Thompson, you know, there's a lot of nepotism. 14%. That's like tithe, brother. That's to show how dominant the coaching ranks are. With that, love you guys much, and we talk to you soon. Greg, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for
It's
the invite, bro.
bedtime.
Anytime.
All right, talk to you soon.
Bye bye.